Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Unfiltered and Intentional. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Um, Always a disclaimer before I start this show. First off, like and subscribe. But I was not going to do a episode this Sunday just because we had an episode last week, and it was kind of like, oh my god, the attempted assassination, blah blah blah. So
Right,
that was like
right.
breaking. So we wanted to jump in and get in there. But I was minding my business on a Sunday afternoon, and I get a phone call. But while in the process of getting this phone call, I'm like, now what? Now what is going on? Now I wear glasses,
Mhm.
and I'm looking at the TV, but my phone is ringing, and I got my co-host right here, Liz, hitting me up in real time. Once again, we always right there with the news. And it's like Biden is dropping out of the race. What the fuck? I'm gonna say it because this is an unfiltered page. What the fuck? Sorry if y'all don't curse. I do like a sailor. But before we get into what the hell just happened, I mean, we knew it was coming. We heard rumors, but we'll get into that. Wanted to give a just a RIP to Sheila Jackson Lee, who was an American lawyer and politician who was in the who was a U.S. representative for Texas, the 18th congressional district, from 1995 until her death of just recently. I want to say yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. Was it yesterday she passed away?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yesterday. Yes.
So just in case you're not sure, definitely look her up. But she has done a lot. We do have a guest coming in. That's going to be my brother. I can't see you, so while he's getting his camera together, we'll still go ahead and still get the talking of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um. Oh, wait a second. We got some comments already coming in.
Toya says, God Sunday evening blessings. God Sunday to you too.
Yeah.
Cash said, ding dong, which is that. Not
Oh
talking about
wow. Are we already going there with the jokes?
no.
Okay.
Hang on, hang on, hang on. We just mentioned that Mrs. The Congresswoman Lee passed away. That's not the witch he's talking about.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So, like I said, we have another guest that's coming in. I don't know if his camera's going to be good, but we're going to just jump in there while that part is taking place. If you haven't noticed, if you haven't turned on the news, if you were asleep all this time, your president that's going to be elected was going to take the nomination, for at the DNC that's coming up. He said he's not. He's dropping out. Liz read this long letter to me. The letter that I was like, "How did you get this shit?" It's a letter that he posted, basically, and the letter that he posted was basically saying you know, he's coming out. He's not going to be in the race anymore, and I think he's promoting the VP, right? Am I mistaken? Anybody else up for
Yes, he has
debate?
endorsed Kamala
Yeah,
Harris. Yes.
yeah. So that is the reason why I took this. I wanted to make this episode because a lot of people have a lot of opinions to say. Was
Mhm.
this a good decision for the Democratic Party? Was it not a good decision for the Democratic Party? You know, um, how do you feel about this, Liz? Before we start getting into the meat and potatoes, just address that little
Oh
elephant.
my gosh, that's here's what I'm gonna say. I think that we're gonna pay a heavy price for this. Just the way that it was done was really, really, really nasty, and it gets heavy. But I do drag around my little karma soapbox, and he was old before the debate, right? They could have primaried him if they were that concerned. They had all year long to put up a different candidate to primary him. There is a process and a way to do that, right? You
Mm-hmm.
do not go all the way through the entire primary season, and then he had a bad debate, and then I mean it was like they came for him and came for him and came for him. Like the dude had no choice. I mean, the only coverage was Democrats want Biden to drop out. It wasn't even the Republicans. It's like it's the Democrats eating their own again.
Mm.
So um, I think that there's going to be a price to pay for it. I mean, don't get it twisted. If it's Kamala, I'm voting for her. If it's the Scarecrow from the Wizard of Oz, I'm voting for him. It just
What? Not the scarecrow.
Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, the Dorothy Toto. I'll vote for anybody over Donald Trump. So, on that account, but the way that this was done was messy, and I think that there's going to be a hefty, hefty price to pay.
Wow. Well, it's interesting that you said it's messy. The reason why I think it's messy is because we had now. I'll say this: Van Jones. If you guys follow him, he's uh, a a commentator, political commentator
Right.
on CNN, and he's done a lot of different things, whatever the case may be within the community. But he said it like this: in the other Democratic side, excuse me, in the other political side, the Republican side, you have a scenario where no matter what our man does, we're going to stand by our man. Just like when you see that woman that's getting her tail tore by that man. She's like, I'm standing by my man. Like, that's how dedicated they are. Even though you know that he's crazy, they
Mhm.
stand by him. He was a convicted felon, still is. They
Yep.
standing by him. They don't care. They are riding. But in
Hmm.
our party, or I'm not going to say my party, I'm independent, but in the Democratic Party, it's a scenario where it's like, okay, we're going to talk about, he needs to get out this race. And you kind of heard rumors, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, hey, I don't think this is a good run for you. But all of a sudden, you see black people I ain't never heard of, black people you ain't seen of in a minute. They're on TV and like, we're riding for our man. And I found it interesting because when it comes to the African American community, I wanted to pull up, okay, what has he done? Because a lot of things people were kind of interested in reference to his political aspect. What has the Biden administration done for African American people?
Hmm.
And I pulled some things up on the whitehouse.gov. Economic opportunity for Black families and communities, providing immediate relief to Black people and families through American Rescue Plan, reversing decades of investment through bipartisan infrastructure law. But all of a sudden, when I started hearing some of these things, I'm like, wait a second, is this a particular issue that affected the Black community personally? Like if they made some type of Asian law or LGBT something, or is this some type of policy that affects everybody? So I started reading more and more, and it's talking about ensuring landowners and resolving title issues, dismantling barriers and accessing USDA programs and services. Once again, I'm like, is this particularly to Black people or everybody? And I found it interesting that there were a lot of Black people saying, hey, well, what did he do? Why should we support Biden? Now that Biden's out, why should we support Kamala Harris? Okay. Well, just
Hmm.
to kind of pull up some statistics on Kamala Harris, 13% don't know who she is, which I find it real interesting. 13% neither dislike her, they're not too sure, they're kind of in the middle. 29% like her. 39% dislike that she's a cop, aka a prosecutor. And the 6% is just like, what? Who's the VP? We're going to get into the comments because they're flooding in, but I wanted to take on I don't know if Charles is in. I know I can see his screen. Oh, now I don't see his screen, but I wanted to take a stab at it, Liz, in reference to, do you feel that the African American Party should just ride for their man, regardless of what? Regardless of what the scenario is, you think they should ride for their man, the party?
I think that if we're going to, first of all, I don't know that all Black people are always going to be one thing or the other, right? I
Okay.
do think that when it comes to Donald Trump, that we should unite behind not him. Like, if you don't want to be a Democrat, that's fine. If you don't want to be an independent, that's fine. You want to be Green Party, whatever it is. I don't know that all Black people have to fall into a certain mold, right? We have vastly different interests, backgrounds, faiths, different contributing factors that get into our voting, right? But I mean, if we can agree that the bad guy in the movie is the bad guy in the movie, we just don't have to vote for the villain, right? And that's my take on that, right? So in this case, in this instance, I do feel that it becomes us to unite behind at least one banner.
Okay.
We can have, you know what? A perfect example of that is, I'm going to go with the rainbow flag. Right? And the reason that they chose the rainbow flag is because it represents so many different types of orientations and sexualities and everything else, right? And so they all the different colors are in there, but it is one flag. It is one banner that they all get behind, right?
Okay.
Everybody else has figured this shit out. Everybody else has, right? the Republican side of things, they got the conservatives, they got the hillbillies, they got the super rich, I mean, whatever it is, right? The people do not have anything in common other than that they know when to fall in line, and we just refuse to. Like, and it's the strangest thing, right? It's is that okay?
I
Yes.
just muted. Yeah, I muted Charles because it seemed like there's some feedback, but we'll unmute when it's time for him to talk. Go ahead.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's the concern that I have. It's not that every black person has to be a Democrat forevermore, right? We just have to decide that that guy is bad. He's bad news for us. You know what I mean? As a group, he's bad news for the country. He's just a bad person. And say what you want to say about Joe Biden. Anybody that's ever had to interact with him that I can think of ever leads with even the people that are supposedly like his perceived enemies. Even when they were trying to prosecute him for the documents, the first thing they said was he's a good man. Like, it's the one thing I think everybody agreed on. If you didn't agree with him on policy, you didn't agree with him as a person, you didn't agree with whatever it is, it's he was a good man, right? Well, on the other side of things, he's a bad man, and most people kind of get that. So I don't know what there
So
is to debate.
before we bring Charles in to comment and things like that, let's just get the comments because they are flooding in. So let's just go ahead and get that, and then we'll bring Charles in.
All right, and so Skullface said, "Evening, everyone. Evening,
Yay.
Skullface." So Cash had originally said "Ding Dong, the witch is dead," but he was saying it in response to Biden, not to
Oh,
the
okay, okay.
So, all right, Z said, "Good evening, everyone." Then you got Skullface said, "Simpsons got it right again,
You know,
maybe."
it's interesting because they had a picture. They had a picture of Lisa Simpson standing in front of a podium, supposed to be the president, and then it had a side by side of
Girl
Pamela with
necklace.
curls and the same type of dress. I was like, "What is the Simpsons?" Oh my
The
god!
Simpsons got it right again. Yep. So
Mhm.
Adele said, "Hello, everyone. Hello, Adele."
Hey.
So let's see. Alistair said the DNC and Biden should have mutually come to this a year ago.
Mm. We're gonna get to that. I'm
Yeah,
gonna pin that. We're gonna get to
there's
that.
a lot of responses to that, right? To which
Yeah,
Skullface
yeah,
said, facts, right? And then Cash said he was an incumbent, so the party blocked the nomination process. There were no debates, and Dems of any consequence did not want to cross the president.
yeah. Mm.
So that's kind of what happened to that process
Oh wait,
there.
let me see.
And
Hey.
evening. So let's see. Alistair's on it tonight. He said Biden been slipping, tripping, and falling over himself. I have to hope and pray every time I see him that he doesn't fall down climbing up or down the steps of Air Force One or to walking up to any podium.
Oh wait, we're missing. They're coming in so fast. I'm missing them. Sorry, guys.
Right? Humble Lion, hi Humble Lion, said that America is doomed and is going to lose either way.
It's funny. I had a lot of people text me that same comment. America's doomed. Like we're all going to shits in hell. So
Yeah,
we're gonna get back to these. We're gonna get back to these. I promise.
so let's see. Cash said, "Agreed, Alistair. This was always the only play, especially when blacks and young people left the coalition in big numbers." So,
Right.
and then Cash continued to say, "But if they did this when then Kamala and the DNC would have had to have an open primary, which she was shown no ability to win."
So before we continue, because like I said, they're still coming in the comments. I definitely want to bring Charles in. So I'm gonna unmute your mic, and I have the question just for this one right here. Do you feel, Charles, that we are doomed and we're gonna just lose just in a general sense?
I don't. Doomed is a it's a very big word. No, I don't think we're doomed. Um, we've been down this road before when Hoover and the Great Depression. Oh, America's coming to an end. Doom and gloom, doom and gloom. With Andrew Jackson when the Seminoles crossed over from Florida into Georgia. Okay, it was doom and gloom then. It's always doom and gloom. Any particular point in history that you come to, whenever there's a change in the currents, it's always doom and gloom. And then what happens? You adjust, you adapt, you make new rules, and then you move the fuck on. You know what I'm saying? So that's essentially what's going to happen here. Um, the world is changing. The Western economic stranglehold on on the world is slowly crumbling, as more and more people are standing up, more and more nations are standing up towards it. But here in the United States, we're seeing that exact same thing. We are seeing a change in the system that we do business here. Where more ethnic people, or people of non-European descent, are getting into positions of power, and you're having a lot of pushback from that, from the white nationalists, from the conservatives. Okay, and so what they want to do, they want to go ahead and come up with um, this this system of where they believe that the white replacement theory and all this other nonsense, whatever, that they want to justify whatever their actions. But it doom and gloom, no, it's always doom and gloom until people adapt.
Well, I guess when I think of doom and gloom, because I've heard people mention, here comes the Civil War. If I
They said
if I
that when
have
Obama came to office. Was there a civil war?
Uh, actually, no.
There was no civil war.
Came to office, that turned the tide, which is how we got to where we are now.
No. Was there a civil war?
But there was no technically a Civil War.
There was no civil war.
Still
Just because you have just because the definition of a civil war, what occurred with Obama did not does not quantify the definition of an actual civil war. All right, it was not a civil war. Just because you have fringe people in the government or outsiders, and like groups like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, you have these type of militia groups, whatever. Okay, none of these militia groups took up arms where there was bodies in the street, there were buildings destroyed, and this is mass uprising.
Would you think it would be the beginning?
That did not occur.
Do you think so? Since we are being technical, do you think that even though that technically didn't happen, that the Proud Boys and these militia groups that are now known, do you think that set it off to like, wait, we just had a black man, even if they didn't believe he was truly a black man and meaning mentally and systematically,
he was even truly an American. They didn't believe he was even truly an American.
But do you think that was the start of it, though? When you started seeing this influx of people like, we're taking our country back. We want to make America great again. And that's when you started seeing
I don't know where you've been. I've known about this. I know about this since the 90s. This is nothing new. Okay? Yeah. If you take it back to even our own family history, all right? Where members of the Klan came looking for a great-grandfather, all right? And they come up in arms. Okay, because our great grandfather stood up to a white man, all right, and they came knocking on the wrong door, and Grandma Effie answered the door with her double barrel shotgun, and that was in the negotiations right there. Okay, so there's always there's always going to be some group here in the country that will take up arms or parade and march and make a big fuss, whatever. Okay, but none of them have the numbers. And that's what we're talking about. You need to have thousands of soldiers, not a couple of hundred. You need thousands. All right. That's how the Civil War started. They had thousands of soldiers. There was a multitude of states that were behind it.
Well, from what now, just to add, I'm gonna let you jump in, Liz, but just to add to what he said, and of course this is just someone talking, but now we have social media and people on social media like, hey, we're beginning this. But they have been saying bunny ears that, hey, when the call comes, we're there. And they are infiltrating systems such as, the police and this. So when it does, that's when the big uproar will happen.
That's nothing new. They were doing that in the 90s. Okay. So there's nothing new about it.
What was you going to say, Liz?
It's been ongoing.
What you had to say? What you had to say? And then we'll go to
okay, can we agree that the end of World War I is what led to World War II, Charles? Would you agree to that?
The end of World War I? No, I would not agree that the end of World War I led to World War II. It's the subsequent years in between World War I and World War II that led up.
Okay. I'll concede to that, right? So how many, I'm with you. We're together. All right, here we go. How many years were there between the end of World War I and the beginning of World War II?
Depending on who you ask, you can sit there and say World War II began in 1938. So we're looking at 20 years.
20 years, right? So yes, back to what you said in terms of did Obama being elected trigger the Civil War? Yes, we're still in that time frame, right? If this leads to that, and last time it took about 20 years for all those sentiments to boil up to the point where we got to the Holocaust and everything else, that is where we are. We're trending in that direction, right? So this led to all this resentment and all these feelings, and we're consistently trending towards what could be the second civil war. We're in the middle of it. So to say that that didn't lead to this is I think that's an understatement by far, because what led to this whole MAGA thing is a black family being in the White House. That sent them deep over the edge, right? And it really started even before Trump with Sarah Palin when she started talking about, just calling it out in terms
The
of him
Tea
being
Party. I think it was the Tea Party.
The Tea
party and
Party.
country back and get your guns and whatever it was, right? That is where it started. It never moves fast. The Civil War itself didn't move overnight. It took about 20 years for that to build up too. People have to feel a certain way. It has to build. They have to build their coalitions and their militias and everything else before that first shot's fired.
Well,
I disagree with you on that. I disagree on that on 100%. The reason why the Civil War started was because in the very organization of this country, it was never solidified. When you had enslaved African American men fighting in the American Revolution who ended up in slave chains at the war's conclusion. That very fact right there, that these men, hundreds of men who volunteered to fight for this fledgling nation, ended up in slave chains at the conclusion of the war. Their families ended up in slave chains at the conclusion of the war. You had the North systematically outlawing slavery and pushing against the expansion of slavery into the West, because they never made a strong consensus. No, there will be no slavery. We do not need your money. You will end slavery now, or we will fucking crush your nuts. They never did that. They wanted to placate them and to compromise.
So
what led to Hitler was placation and compromise. So going forward, what led to the actual Civil War was over 90 years of placation and compromise, thinking that you can change evil from what it is. And they learned a hard lesson.
Wait. And so, we have to get to the, we kind of get to the comments, but I just want to say this little caveat before we get to the comments. So I'll say this, even though it may not be a thing of where, thousands of people are up in arms and it's a true civil war in that aspect, and the countries are, split. You got the North and the South and the things like we used to see. I'll say that I've always had a spidey sense. And my spidey sense is some shit is brewing. Now, what that shit is, I can't label it and say, oh yeah, it's the economy. Oh yeah, it's the meltdown of the cyber attack or whatever. But something, I'm smelling it. Growing up, we all from New York. Growing up in New York, you could always smell when a jump was about to happen. People start circling around. You look at it,
I'm about to go down, right?
Cracking up. So that's all I'm saying. I smell something that's happened. But let's just go ahead and just hit up this comment real quick. I think we were.
Let's see. I think it's Alistair. Isn't that what the Republicans do? I mean, they have a rapist, con, felon rolled into their previous president and current nominee. So he was talking about them just falling in line, and they do not give up no matter what, right? And so Cash says, because when the LGBTQ, we were talking about the flags, right? And so when they win, they all win, right? When Republicans win, they all see the gains. When the Democratic Party wins, certain parts of the coalition and the rest of us are expected to be pragmatic.
You know something? I have to say something to that. You know what I don't like about the Democratic Party? And I can't say if the Republican Party does it or not. Maybe they do. Okay. I don't follow it like that. But what I noticed is that there's many types of Democrats. You have some that are more liberal, and then there's some that's more conservative. But what I've noticed is that if you've had somebody saying, hey, I have a different viewpoint than you, Nancy Pelosi, they kind of block you. They put their arm up and like, And I give a perfect example. I had somebody that I was talking to one time, and it was like, yo, when Bernie Sanders was trying to run for office, he had some good things he was saying. I really wanted to listen to what he had to say. What is different, instead of both sides. I really wanted to hear what he had to say. And right. I remember the news station was told they could not ask certain questions. They couldn't even have him on in that aspect, because they were told ahead of time by, I guess, the people who run the DNC that don't ask those questions. So even though when we have people say, hey, we don't ride for our candidate, we have our own leaders saying, nah, you're not even going to, like if Charles said right now, you know what, I want to be a part of this thing, throw my hat in the bucket. Why would there be networks deliberately sabotaging his voice? He has something to say. He's thinking about running. Why is the total the big wigs of the Democratic Party already coming out blocking him?
Though that's powerful people doing powerful things. Like, I mean, that is
Or
like
how
the
can
name.
we ever have any other? You know what I'm saying? Like,
You have to get rid of the two-party system in order for that to happen.
how?
But we won't.
I'm not. I agree with you. We won't. All I'm saying is that if you want that to change, the two-party system would fundamentally have to change, or you would have to have people in masses voting for a third party. Have third-party candidates. Have third-party candidates won. Yes. One of the biggest names was Jesse the Body Ventura. He went from being a naval diver / SEAL, Navy SEAL in Vietnam, to a WWF wrestler, to a part-time actor. He was a Predator, and next thing you know, he's the governor of independent governor. And he did great things for that state. And then after that, he becomes a conspiracy theorist.
Do you think that Americans in general are just too complacent? Because at the end of the day, when you have that third party system, you're thinking kind of outside the box. Okay, I like a little bit over here, a little bit over here, and then what else? But I think that people maybe get too comfortable. Like, okay, so maybe they don't have enough faith. What is it that we don't say? We are tired. We are tired and we're just going to do something different. It doesn't seem like you always have a little group of people. So right now, Charles, you may say, you know what?
I'm an independent. Yes.
100 people may vote differently, but why the masses? Aren't we tired of the same bullshit from both sides? Or you don't think we're not there yet?
History has proven the only time the masses ever do anything to act in their self-interest against the actual norm is when the masses hit rock bottom. The American Revolution, the French Revolution, every single major revolution that's ever occurred is when the masses sit back, whatever, and say, when there are hundreds of thousands of people dying in the street, there's mass, we're talking about unemployment beyond what was in the Great Depression. We're talking 40% of the population is unemployed. Only then do people start taking matters into their own hands about trying to change the system. And 90% of the time, it's not about working within the system. It's about completely chaos, disorganization, revolutionary mentality, whatever.
Gotcha.
Until there's finally enough bloodshed where everyone says, okay, we've had enough, whatever. Let's try to work something out, whatever, okay? Unfortunately, that's just the way human nature is, all right? You're seeing that right now in Haiti, all right?
Yeah,
all the gangs, all they cannot, they will not, they refuse to even work together. All right.
Gotcha.
So now we can sit back and say, yeah, it's outside forces, the United Nations, and all this other type of stuff. Yes, we all aware of that, whatever. But you can break bread with your opposition if you choose to. All right. And here in this case, in the United States, whatever, it's everything either one or the other. You're either a Christian or you're something else. They don't even want to get in with the something else is, whatever, okay?
Before we go to that comment, Liz, and you read that comment, it's so funny he said that. I found it so funny watching the RNC, and they said, hey, let's pray to our God and this and this. And I was like, well, what happens if you don't pray to Jesus? Like, because he said it to everybody, like, hey, everybody bow your heads and boo, boo, boo. And I'm like, well, what happens on Muslims? Do I go to Mecca? What's happening here? Like, it's very funny he said that because you don't see them, because we don't see them embrace other religions like Christianity. It's either a Christian or you something completely different.
Well, and even within Christianity, listen, you have literally, it's only been 2 Catholic presidents. Biden's number 2, JFK was number 1. Every other one is a Protestant. So even by coming across by saying you're Catholic, okay, you're going to get a certain portion of the population
that's questionable, right?
That's right. That's going to vote against you. You know what I'm saying?
Go ahead and read that. Woo, I'm getting gray hairs again. Go ahead.
Again, wow, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
All right, so Mr. Stephen Crow, and I think this is your first time in the comment section, so welcome. So this is exactly the same tactic that was used last election. People are not actually voting for a candidate with a platform; they are voting against an individual. Right. Okay. We'll come back to that. So Skullface says Harris can win America over if she demonstrates confidence and composure, and obviously don't show anger, since you know how people feel threatened when we show conviction and determination.
You know
Right.
what's interesting? If you turn on Fox News right now, this very moment, when they talk about her, they are already using the spin. She is crazy. Laughing Harris is what they're
Laughs
calling.
loud.
They do not like her, and it's crazy because in 2003 she was the DA of San Francisco. In 2011, I think that says 11, the AG of Cali, and a lot of people have a lot of comments to say on how she governed in the aspect of the law, and what she did in reference to black men in particular during those time frames. If you guys have any of those statistics, I wasn't able to pull it up, but they had a lot to say. I mean, people will look at your resume. Let's just say right now, one of us was a sheriff, and they're like, "Hey, I want to run," and you're like, "Wait a second, Akia. It says here that you shot these innocent kids and you did this and do this. Do we hold those people accountable?" So it's really going to be interesting how she plays this. I mean, she did graduate from an HCBC, you know what I'm saying?
HBCU. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And Howard University to be exact. And she is AKA,
She's a soror.
so a lot of the African American women right now, there's grassroots parties, saying, "Hey, how do we back this woman? How do we support our VP?" I'm very, very curious though to see who she elects to be a VP to run with her.
Okay.
They're talking about Newsom. Some people have that in their mind.
Wrong. That's the wrong way.
You
No.
think so?
Oh,
Liz, you're shaking
Oh,
your head.
I agree with that. What is
You
going
guys
on?
hardly ever agree. Okay, that's
You're losing.
interesting.
That's a hell no.
And that's because of the Californian, because a lot of people don't like people from California.
Well, I
And
mean, we already, and funny enough that you say so, because even with Kamala Harris, I was just like, I don't know that a California Democrat was the way to go. Not that she's as far reaching as Gavin Newsom has been, but at the end of the day, show me your company and I'll tell you who you are, kind of thing, right? So that's a hurdle that we're going to have to overcome. But look, Gavin Newsom, smart guy, whatever, but it's a hell no
the
for
only
me.
thing I say that I like about the only thing I like about Newsom is the fact that he was able to give the actual owners, their ancestors, the land and their property on Long Beach. Um, so basically, in reference to these people
But they had
they
their
were
land
out on
taken.
their land, and he gave it back in reference to reparations in that form. And that was good. They were able to trace that back. Hey, this is not your land. A lot of white people were upset because they're like, "Hey, we live here. What's going on here?" And they're like, "Well, you kind of stole it from us." And but I did like that part. Well, we could go back to the comments real quick. Oh wait,
Yes. Well, I mean, and to what you were saying, right? And I feel like if we were even going back to Mr. Crow's comment, we at this point, this show tonight is mostly about Biden dropping out, Kamala becoming the nominee, right? We can definitely talk about the candidate and their platform and why we would vote for or against a certain candidate or a certain platform. And the same goes for Gavin Newsom and why you want to vote for him or against him. Unfortunately, because of time, this is more of a shallow conversation. But believe me when I tell you, in the months to come, keep tuning in to Unfiltered and Intentional, because we got you on the platform
like and
and the
subscribe.
candidate. So make sure you like and subscribe and keep us playing, all right? So
Did we read
um,
this one? Not sure.
let's see. Yes, we got that one. And then Alistair said, "Let me see that long form birth certificate." Just being silly. So, all right. Skullface says, "We don't need a traditional civil war to have a civil war."
You know what? Now things are, I mean, back in those days, we did not have, social media and this and this. Things have changed in reference to weaponry and how people get back at people. So, how we label it is how we label it. But like I said, I do smell something. I smell something brewing. I don't know what's brewing, but I smell it. Maybe because I'm just always got my head on the swivel. But this is definitely not your normal election.
And it won't be a traditional civil war. We're not. I mean, we're so far removed. To go back to a comment between President Obama when he was debating Mitt Romney, nobody's going to roll up on horses and bayonets, right? Which is how the last civil war was fought. It's not going to happen that way. We don't fight any wars that same way anymore, right? And so you got cyber, you got drones, you got. We don't really have a whole lot of say bloodshed, other than if you're really trying to take over another country like Ukraine. But for the most part, I do agree with Skullface that it is not going to be a traditional civil war, but the civil war is coming, right? So Toya said that I concur with Liz. I think that's when I was kind of having my moment about the civil war. Candace said social
Not the
media.
moment.
I was having a moment. Candace said social media will knock that time down. So yeah, it won't be 20 years. I'm gonna agree. Well, we're kind of getting there, right? And so let's see, we got a hand clap from Talia. So um, Mr. Crown said Harris has a horrible track record where she pushed hard to lock people up for minor offenses. A terrible pick in general, specifically not for Black people.
Can I make a comment on that?
Do
Oh,
that.
go ahead, Charles. Go ahead.
Well, it's not just it was not just people. It was not just people of African descent that were affected by it as well. It was also the Latino community as well. She went very, very hard on both the African American and Latino community of Los Angeles and later on California. Even for minor offenses. So to go ahead and sit there and say, how much has she changed over the years? Okay, well, at this point, that's irrelevant. She's going to be she's going to be the Democratic nominee for president. So that's already foregone. That's more than likely what's going to occur unless there's someone pulls a magic rabbit out of their hat.
Then I'm really gonna be on the show.
Right,
Somebody pulled a fucking magic rabbit out their ass.
And again, it's not truly locked in until the DNC. All right, but right now it's looking that way that's what's going to happen. So now the question is, how do we have someone who has this horrible track record? How do we go ahead and now that make this person not only talk back some of the things that she has done, but also go ahead and make things better for the marginalized communities that she has herself impacted, and she's actually a part of. So
it's interesting.
Prosecutor.
Well, it's interesting when.
Well, yes, she's a prosecutor. Yes.
Well, she was but here's the thing, though. So on one end, it's like, man, do we do hard time for people who have minor offenses? So you got caught with some weed in your pocket, and then now you're facing 5 years for the little bag of weed or whatever that looks like. But then you have some people say, hey, if you go hard on somebody with a minor offense, they'll never do it again, and they'll never commit a serious offense. I mean, that's a whole different topic, whole different conversation.
It's entirely different. Yeah.
That's another one.
But I mean, it just kind of makes you think in reference to just her track record, how people feel. I mean, I was even wondering, and the fact, because when Hillary was running, she's a woman. Will other leaders from over societies, who don't even there's some Arab nations who won't even look a woman in the eye, or have that meeting face to face or whatever. So you have a lot of people saying, "Hey, she's a woman of color," So a lot of different other things may go against her too.
Well,
right?
I don't think that'll be that is a tired troop. When it comes to will the Arab leaders be able to negotiate with her. There was everyone remembers Margaret Thatcher. Okay, Margaret Thatcher,
the Iron Lady,
Prime Minister, the Iron Lady. Okay,
yep.
And guess what? She shook hands with the Saudi king, sat right next to him, the Saudi king. Guess what? There was no choice in the matter. All right, you will have to address a state leader. Okay, and now whether or not Great Britain's power is what it was in the 80s, is what it is now. Who knows if those things would change? But the United States' power is still what it is. Okay, and so we know that if she was elected president of the United States, whatever, they have no choice but to go ahead and treat her just like every other single.
Right.
Okay, or we go ahead and we start pulling them funds.
Okay.
And
Well, I
and
have
by the
somebody who came in on a text, and I didn't know if they. I'm not going to say their name because they never told me they wanted their name to be read, but I'll just say a comment that came in. They weren't able to. So I'm sorry if somebody is trying to get in the chat and text because some people saying that their message is not being shown. But just in a general sense, it says all I want to say is that I support her fully, and I know that she means I'll get full support outside of our community, specifically Black women. Was only a two-term senator before he became president, and of course, Trump had no political experience whatsoever. Her being a prosecutor and senator for more than 10 years, she knows what she's doing. At the point, at this point, if Project 2025 doesn't scare you into making the right decision in November, I do not know what else will. So I just wanted to make sure I read that comment out.
right, it's and even to Mr. Seven Crown, I read it as Stephen Crown before. I don't know what my issue is, but all right, but even to Seven Crown, she's a flawed candidate. She's not exactly perfect. No one at this point. First of all, we got 3 months to go, so let's take what we can get and make it work, right? But I mean, we talk about, yeah, she kind of locked up Black people, Hispanic people for minor offenses and so on and so forth. But she also came hard for the banks. She came hard for shady corporations and schools and everything else that were doing things that were intentionally harmful to especially minority communities. So I mean, yeah, she did some things as a prosecutor, but she did some other things that helped everybody out, even beyond California. Even when she was only the prosecutor for California or the DA for California. So we can't discount that. Now, would she have been my choice? Maybe not. But here's where we are. Let's do it, right? So Cash said, looking at the country and who has all the money and the power, you could make an argument that the Confederates won despite no longer being able to have their version of slavery. Fair point. So like I said, what Cash said. So Candace said slave owners got reparations real quick. They sure did. So Cash said the Dems have one faction that runs the party and has no use or tolerance for the progressive wing. Don't
Yeah,
sleep on the progressive ring. It's growing. It is growing. It's
I
coming.
don't
It's one
know. I
Well,
side. It's how it
they
works.
they took a little ding in losing one of their one of the people part of that as part of the so-called squad. I can't remember the representative's name. But he lost his seat. Yeah, he lost his seat. But no, they do hold sway on a lot of things because especially when if their numbers they tend to group and vote as a block. So when things are tight, now you have to go ahead and court them. So I wouldn't sleep on them altogether. They do. There are questionable things but I'm like that way with everyone. There's some I will work with you on some things. I agree with you on some things, and then if I don't agree with you, I'll fight you on the other.
I mean, but we can't even agree on what progressive is, right? I mean, so
Exactly.
we really can't agree on what
that's
progressive is. It's
funny.
crazy. I mean, so you got people that are fiscally progressive. You got the socially conscious progressives. You got the people that take it way too damn far, progressives like Gavin Newsom. I mean, like there's progressive and then there's progressive. I know for a fact that I'll say I'm true blue. I have been for a while, and I think the Democrats left me, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party left me behind a long time ago. I can name several things if we were
But
going
then
down
it
that.
goes. But then it goes back to why is the Democratic Party? And I know we've had this question again, but I still repeat the question: is why is it that the Democrats cannot have a unity? We cannot, like, even if we disagree. So we all three of us disagree. So behind closed doors, we're talking about it. And you know what? Today, Charles, I'm not going to have that beer with you. And and Liz, I'm going to go out with you today. Whatever that is, but in public, we are uniform, we are lock solid, ready to rock. That's it. When you look
We
at the
can't
Republican
do that. We
side,
got
Well,
the division.
Republican side has discourse.
there's a very clear answer for that. The Democrats have no leader. A leader would be able to go ahead and be able to bridge those gaps. That's the point behind a leader. A leader does what? A leader provides motivation and direction. to get everyone to go ahead and follow a common cause for a common goal. Okay, the last leader the Democrats had was Nancy Pelosi. All right, when Nancy Pelosi was in office, she got a lot of the progressives to toe the line. It was hard. It wasn't necessarily always successful, but for the most part, she was able to get them to toe the line. She is now takes the back seat now. All right, and the current head of the Democratic Party, whatever, okay, does not have that ability to bridge these divides. Okay, and because and you know, and yes, the head of the Democratic Party is essentially Joe Biden. And if he can't remember who his vice president is, who the hell is going to remember who the members of the squad are?
It was
Shot fired.
Right now. Stop that.
wait. So with that being said, I had another comment come in. Somebody different. They never said they wanted their name to be mentioned, so I will not do that. But they said this is about when you guys were going back and forth in reference to Civil War or not. They said actually they both have a point. However, I hear what you're saying is no longer a race war, more so political civil war when you have American versus American. And then also then goes to say the two-party system is the new civil war, Bloods versus Crips, red versus blue. That was one comment there. And then we can go right here.
So, so you said that part, Candace, talking about how the slave owners
the hand clap. You know how a sister be like,
You got to pierce your lips together for that. So, Lion said, unelected officials run America, not your presidents. 85% of politicians have dual citizenship in Israel.
Ooh, did not know that. You know, Humble Lion, you always be dropping a little something for me to look at.
A lot of Jewish people in our government. There's a lot of them, right? And here's the thing, because they run. If we ran, there'd be a lot of us too. Let me just sprinkle that out there.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
So it would, so Cass said it would make sense to have two Democrats from California. They speculate she will choose a Midwest governor most likely. Also, they're reporting that it is expected that Kamala will be made the official nominee by Wednesday. They can't do that by Wednesday. They have to wait until the convention.
They have to wait until
the convention. Not an official nominee.
Does anybody know what day specifically? Anybody know what day specifically the DNC is going on?
I can find out real quick.
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
Let's see.
So I know they said
it's in Chicago, August 19th to August 22nd.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so let's see. Alistair says Supreme Court justices is just in a different form. Right. They are. There is a revolution taking place.
Well, you know what's interesting? Because I always make the stance and say, you know, white people plan like 50 years out in advance. Like they're always planning. Like while we're over here trying to figure out some shit, they're already making it.
Exactly.
You know what Trump did? Trump already seen the future. Trump was like, you know what? I'm already going to do it like this so that by these time frames turn around, we could already have these outcomes. And for some strange reason, I don't see that the Democrats do that. They don't think that far in advance. Not saying that they haven't tried. And then you have a Mitch McConnell, whoever, block them or do different things or whatever. But it just seems like they're a little bit more hardcore. You know, they just come at it and they like, I mean, you know what the craziest thing, and I have never seen, Trump will literally be like, your wife is a big face so-and-so, your husband is a so-and-so, and the same people, like 2 weeks later, is kissing the ring, like the big ring.
Just chanting his name is the weirdest thing.
How do you get to call my husband a big face so-and-so and your wife is a fat so-and-so, and then now you're kissing the ring? What type of back? Woo.
Alistair had a question. He said, was Harris easier on whites than browns and blacks? The answer is no. So that's what I was kind of getting at earlier. So we were talking about how she was a prosecutor in LA. Well, even without any of us having lived in LA, right? If you think about the late 90s, early 2000s, LA had a crime problem, right? And who were the perpetrators of this crime problem? The blacks and Latinos. So when she was dealing with the crimes on the ground, it was the blacks and Latinos that were most affected by what she was doing. But when she was dealing with the macro level shit, those were all white people. The schools and the banks and the fake universities and all of that, those were white people, and they got fined in the billions. She holds the records for fines and waves of changes. Things that she did in California, we felt it here. How many people do you know that got their student loans forgiven for shiesty shammy schools like Everest, right? And that's
I
comfortable.
actually went to that shiesty school for my associates, and I'm still waiting for the. I gotta let me tell my business. I gotta let us say that they were going to take my student loans away, and they still have not, because the Republicans have held all that shit up in court. And I'm like, wait, what do I got to do with the loan forgiveness? The school. Remember, he was on the commercial. He was like, "Are you unmotivated? Well, how about you go to Everest?" Well, I was unmotivated. I went to Everest, and they lied to me. I mean, that was back in the day, but you know.
All right. So Z said, question: what, in your opinion, would he's asking us, would stop the layperson liberal from backing VP Harris?
Ooh, you first.
Oh, me first?
Okay, Charles
Oh,
first. He was quiet.
yes,
No.
thank you.
Yeah, quiet guy. Go ahead. What, in
Uh,
your opinion, would stop
I'm
the
trying
layperson?
to see the question. I don't see the
What
question.
would stop you from backing Vice President Harris?
Stop me from backing Vice President Harris. If Michelle Obama came to run, then
Let's go.
I would vote. I would vote for Michelle in a heartbeat.
You know what?
But
Let me tell
outside of
y'all.
that, outside of that, it is a measure of. Listen, I ran into at the time before she became vice president. Kamala Harris was on 125th Street in New York, about to meet with Al Sharpton at Sylvia's. Anyone knows who's part of the New York City political system. You want to court the black vote in New York City, you have to have a meeting with Reverend Al Sharpton. And so she came for her meeting, and she was actually on the outside, and I'm walking with my son, and this little crowd, and I stopped and I asked Kamala Harris a question regarding veterans, basically about what support would she prioritize in helping veterans who are transitioning from the military, being able to re-enter civilian life. Okay, not only as far as having a job, but also being able to integrate into civilian life and feel a part of civilian life, and not have this level of animosity that many veterans have, or loss of a sense of purpose, what a lot of veterans have, which eventually leads to high suicide rates. And so, and she came back with an immediate answer that actually impressed me. So I knew right then and there. I said, and after I saw her first debate that she was in, which she mopped the floor with Elizabeth Warren and everyone else, that that she can hold her own. So the as far as the things that disproportionately affected Blacks and Latinos, in the end, I always ask, what percentage of those people that were affected were innocent people to begin with? If 100% of them were all innocent people that she railroaded into jail, then she does not deserve to ever step one foot in office, and she needs to go to prison for the rest of her life. But the fact remains, these were not still innocent people, regardless of their minor crimes or not. They were still breaking the law. And if you want to go ahead and sit there and say, well, selling weed is not that big of a deal, blah, 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 I disagree with you. I have seen people killed over weed. All right? Not because the weed made them act funny. It's because the money that they were taking away from another person who was making money off of it, whatever, led to violence. Okay? So if it had never been illegal to begin with, that's neither here nor there. I probably shouldn't be, whatever. Okay, but
at the time they were breaking the law and made them criminals, and she.
But still, fact remains is
right.
These people that she unfairly, if you want to say, or disproportionately affected, whatever, they still were breaking the law. So listen, they're that's part of the shit you got to fucking deal with when you ride on the other side of the fence. So in that regard, is she aware of it now? I've literally heard her say whatever that. In hindsight, she felt that she may have been too hard in those circumstances, but she felt she had to have a tough mentality, or give the appearance of being hard on street crime. All right, but that's part of the American psyche. Okay, American psyche always views street crime as this rampant prevalence issue, whatever. Okay, and they don't see, white collar crime is equally as fucking dangerous. If you're ruining people and destroying their lives, whatever, guess what that leads to? More street crime.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say, very good point. I'll say for my answer to that question real quick is when it comes to any candidate, and this is just my opinion, I feel that you have to do your research. A lot of times people will pick the latest hashtag. Maybe they're listening to some type of conservative radio or the joke. I mean, a lot of times, especially if something's funny, I'm around people who love to laugh, and you find something funny, like, oh, did you hear what she said about this one and this one? And they don't go ahead and do that research. Everybody, that I said it before, has a resume. Everything that you do in life, you paint a picture of yourself so people can perceive whatever. Now, everybody's perception of things are differently, but we have this ability to find out what's good. So with that being said, from the man that you date, from the woman that you want to marry, from the job that you want to work, from the house that you're going to buy, you have to do the research. You can't be in a situation and then be like, oh, hell no, I know y'all not paying the right amount. And what do you mean? There's a thing called Glassdoor where you can look up and you can see exactly what the pay rate was. You could do your research. You could wait. Actually, if you was going to move into a neighborhood, you can wait until it got dark to drive in that neighborhood and look around and say, oh, well, they come outside at nighttime. You can do the actual research on your part to say, hey, does this person benefit me and my family, X, Y, and Z? So there's no excuse. So for me, when it comes to voting for her, I say that I would have to do the thorough research because, like I said, I followed her, but not to the point of, okay, what did Biden do? What's up with him? A lot of times we don't hear too much about what a VP does. I don't like the fact that there would be times where, like the whole border thing, she was supposed to be in control of it, and then it seemed kind of got just scrambled. Like, what the fuck happened? Where'd you even go? All I see you is doing the little AKA symbols at the college. What's happening, girl? But at the end of the day,
she learned very hard lesson that there's no easy fix for the border because of the level of treaties that we have with Mexico and the level of treaties we have with the Native American or indigenous reservations.
But just to answer that question, no matter what and who I decide to vote for or whatever the case may be, I have to do that research and see if it's going to be beneficial for me and mine, and then go from there. And that's for anything that I do. I'm going to look the person up, and I'm going to put it out there. I am nosy, especially if you tell me something like, what, really? Now, I'm not young anymore. I don't be telling nobody business, but I do be having a little ear like, oh, really? You did what? You got fired? But that's bad. But go ahead.
I mean, let me answer the question. It's a loaded question, Z, because you did say what would stop the layperson liberal. As I just mentioned, I feel like the liberal wing of the party has gotten just a little too liberal for me. And if we had gone through a traditional, process with the primaries and we had choices, I maybe wouldn't have gone with her. This is just a matter of personal choice. I am pro-choice. I am not pro-abortion. And I feel like a lot of times when she gets rolled out there for women's issues, she comes across as a little too pro-abortion for me. And there is a difference. I know a lot of people don't make that distinction. I'm pro-choice. I do not believe that restrictions should be put on women, but I am not out here advocating for and putting up billboards to support or condone abortions, generally speaking, right? And I think that she has been used as a tool in that way and should let herself be used. And it's especially rich given that she has absolutely no children, so maybe she isn't the best champion for that particular cause, right? That's not something that I specifically vote on as heavily as I do other things. But for example, I feel like if we had put up a better candidate on issues like that, we probably could have found somebody a little bit stronger to combat what they're trying to do on the other side of the spectrum. So that's kind of what I would say about that. In the meantime, I opened up the show saying that I would vote for any of the characters from The Wiz, The Wizard of Oz, doesn't matter, over Donald Trump. I had to speak to what Kia was saying. I have done my research. I know exactly who Donald Trump is and what he brings. I know enough about his vice president already to know that I am not interested in anything that he's bringing to the table either. And so I don't care what they put up on the blue side of things. That's just where I'm going to be for this election. In the past, I've been open to giving, the other team a fair shake and listen to what they have to say and everything else. At this point, I am not. I'm completely, these ears are closed. I don't want to hear it. It's all bullshit.
You said you got cotton balls in your ears. Oh Lord.
I can't hear nothing that they're saying. They sound like they're full of shit. They will never get my vote. Not in this cycle, and probably not for a couple of cycles until they get their stuff together on the other side of things. So Kamala, let's go.
Go ahead with the next comment. Ooh, they still
All right. Alistair said, why is it about what's impacting Black people as opposed to what's in the best interest of us all?
Well, I'll say this. This is my comment for that. Because when you have certain sections like the Asian population or LGBT or whatever, and these are, now you just said these are actual sections and blocks of individuals and groups, there will be, for me, I'm like, wait a second, why, if it's not that serious, why is it that you will go ahead and say, hey, this bill is being passed specifically for Asian American people? Specifically, that's in the terms Asian American people, Asian Pacific people, LGBT, Marco Rubio. This is for our Hispanic, blah, blah, blah. You didn't say all the people. You ain't say Akia. You ain't say Jeremy on the South Side. You ain't say my brother Charles. You said specifically these people. So why is it now when it comes to, hey, well, what does Black people get? Well, what you mean? We're all Americans. Wait a second. Why does it have to be dividing? Why can't we just come together as one people? Wait a second. Well, why do you have these bills specifically for these other groups? So my question would be actually diverted to the people who made the policies. Why are they making policies and doing things specifically for specific groups and not all Americans? If we're all Americans, then it shouldn't be, hey, go ahead.
I could kind of answer to that too a little bit, but so I think it was Humble Lion that mentioned that you got a lot of dual citizen Jews basically that are a part of our government, and my answer to that was, well, because they run, right? When LGBTQ people want things passed, you know what they do? They either run or they donate like hell, and they're super involved, and they're out there in the streets and doing what they have to do. When when it comes to women's rights, it's the same thing, right? Women will donate like hell and they'll put on their little pussy hats and march on the Capitol or whatever it is that they need to do.
Are you saying Black people don't do that?
Not at the rate that LGBTQ people do. And when they do, by the way, so when you look at like Black Lives Matter, a lot of things happen that were Black Lives Matter oriented, right? And then they got a couple people to put banners on their little landing page, and then it kind of faded out a little bit. But when we activate and we get loud, we get things passed too. You get specific bills with people's specific names on it, and sometimes it makes it through, and sometimes it doesn't.
So
but
the Democrats.
Well, the political motivation the political motivation for the African American community at large in the United States is not how it used to be. Okay, during the 50s, during the 60s, there was an easily identifiable target. You can sit there and say, there's the Klan. There are the states with these anti-voting laws that are like on the okay. There's church burnings. Okay. There's these things.
Jim Crow.
Guess what? As a collective, the African American community during these eras, okay, with highly educated African American leadership, were able to go ahead and fight the fight for that every other ethnic group now benefits from. Okay, so the ability for an Indian American person to be able to vote, for a Latino American person to be able to vote, for an Eastern Asian American to vote, for a Middle Eastern American to be able to vote, was fought on the backs of African Americans. We were the ones who fought this fight, who were getting beat up by police officers, who are supposed to be protecting us, right? Okay, attacked with fire hoses by the fire department, who should be using that to actually put out real fires. But maybe in their mind, we were the fire, right? So it was on our backs, by which all these other communities now have benefited from. The problem is, how much more fighting do we have to do? And for the younger population, depending on what the subject matter is, shows their level of actual motivation to get actually involved. I have 4 young men who came through, friends of my stepson, whatever, okay? And majority of them are on the fence about voting. I had to have like a 30 to 45-minute conversation with them about the importance of voting. All right. So when you have this apathy within the African American community, the younger community, whatever, about voting, about change, about things, whatever, that they can actually affect, whatever, okay? And there's no easily identifiable target. Oh, this, we have to stop this right here, okay? Because guess what? Boom, there's a church burning, whatever, okay? It's hard to get them motivated and get them involved in an actual cause. So, which again, within the African American community, there is no charismatic leader or leadership, whatever, okay, that can bridge that can build the people up as of right now. We had Martin Luther King, we had Malcolm X, okay. The last one that we had that was popular nationwide was Jesse Jackson. He ended up turning out to be a damn fool. You know what I'm saying? Okay, later on in life, whatever. Okay.
There was Farrakhan. I mean, Farrakhan is still still around, but they kind of pushed him to the side.
Well, Farrakhan
has always been divisive,
an alienated figure because there are many people who blamed him for the death of Malcolm X. So regardless of the fact, whatever, he was someone who was trying to bridge this, like with, like, for example, the Million Man March. Okay, there was still an aspect of the African American community that would not get behind him because they thought that he was responsible or was somehow involved with the assassination.
But it's funny you mentioned the Million Man March, just for the simple fact that during that time you actually had people come together, and you seen African American, the group itself, come like, "Hey, we're here, brothers, let's unite." And then they had the Million Women March.
But he didn't put anyone in office. Okay, it was just a march for unity, but there was no candidate for office.
I think the premise of that march, though, and it can still apply to this day, is to show the power of our dollar, and the power of our dollar is just as strong as the power of our voice. So with us,
the power of that dollar means nothing if there isn't a political behind it.
Purpose and an agenda, something very specific that you want to point to. Was there a specific law they want to pass?
Remember Ice Cube? Remember Ice Cube came out and he's like, "Hey, I'll listen to anybody, but I have an agenda." As soon as Ice Cube put that agenda out, you had a lot of black women say, "Rip this up," because I don't see the woman that says, I don't see anything that says women, black women. He's like, "Wait, this is for all of us." But at the end of the day, it is just
everybody wants their group to be representative. So again, you have to understand the times that you're dealing with. Okay, back in the 50s, back in the 60s, you can sit there and say, you know, the Negro population of the United States, the Negro needs to come together, whatever, and blah 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 blah. You can't use the word Negro now, whatever. Okay, all right. So the times have changed. So when you are going to sit there and become a leader within the African American community, you have to sit there and understand. You have to speak to, you know, sister girl there, whatever.
Not even that. And just to say to one thing back to back what he just stated, if you Google statistically what African American their household value represents current day, we are so below. We are below the poverty line in reference to just African American wealth in reference to the collective. So with that being said, to answer that question one more time, there needs to be a push like, we need to have a stronger backing. If we were able to come together, to unite, we were able to go to the Democratic Party and say, "Hey, you want our vote? This is what you need to do." Even in this time, if we come together now, where the Democratic Party is all fucked up and they're all this and this and this, and everybody's whispering about this and this, and we say, hey, Miss Harris, if you want our vote, these are the things that we're needing from you. We need better education. We need this and this. We need for you to, when we sell our homes, have more home value equally to our counterparts. We need better USDA programs for food. We need this and this. There are ways that we can still, because at the end of the day, the Democrats want to be elected. So we can still they still need our vote. African American vote is very, very needed in this election. If you
Well,
still want to vote, we could push that shit.
I mean,
for,
here's
for
what.
example, Biden needed the African American vote. It's basically what won him the election. All right, but still, in the end, if you want unity, you have to have a leader to be able to go ahead and push that direction. And right now, there is none.
Well, let me sit back down because I was all
I
up
mean,
and
well, here's what I'm going to say, because it is after 10 and we have a bunch
yeah.
of comments to get through. I do think that here we need a whole show that's kind of dedicated to this, because another thing that I'm gonna toss this out there, and I swear I'm gonna let it go, is I'll be honest with you, if somebody put a piece of legislation right now and said this is for the Black community, I kid you not, I would be exceedingly skeptical about it. Because every time they've ever done anything for the Black community, I don't know if you want to look back at that 30 years later, 40 years later, 50 years later, and say that that was really about advancing the Black community. I'd be increasingly skeptical of it, right? And the easiest example that I could give you, the greatest bill that all of us have, every single person, regardless of who you are, if you live on a living wage, if you would, your biggest bill is your cost of living, your rent, your mortgage, keeping a roof over your head, right? So you had this genius idea that was going to mostly help and affect Black people in urban areas to kind of lower or eliminate their housing costs. And this is going to help them, right? Those are the projects, and that was a trap. So I'd be real skeptical about programs designed to help to lift the Black person up, and that don't necessarily affect anybody else. Usually, generally speaking, that doesn't work out really well when we look back at it. So I'm kind of with Alistair on the notion that, you know what, I want what everybody else is having as long as I get a piece of that. So don't send it to a Black school or a white school. Lift up the community school, and my kids will go to that school, and we'll all be in it together, and they'll be better for it. So I mean, I kind of get where the question was going, and I feel like that's a whole different show. So Alistair said, I think Harris has a better record than Trump.
I think so too.
And then Z, he corrected himself a couple comments later where he said, it's the broken window theory. So yeah. All right. Cash said her office was sued by a guy who got $13 million for malicious prosecution for murder. She showed up to the verdict, reading and sentencing, blocking his appeal despite him being innocent. That's every prosecutor. There's no prosecutor that hasn't happened to. Right? And then they were mentioning, yes, he corrected himself, and then DEJ and Z both said it was Charles Jamal Bowman. That was the congressman that got ousted from the squad when Charles was speaking about that some time ago. Then Cash said they are looking to do the plan, having the online roll call vote. That makes the nomination official, and then you just have a ceremony at the convention. Okay, I did hear something like that. But the convention must go on, right? Z said at Kia, for example, J.D. Vance, he compared Trump to Hitler, and now he's Trump's VP, talking about bending the knee. So when you were
Man,
talking,
it's
he has
crazy. They are doing all types of stuff. I'm not trying to be that unfiltered, but you know what I mean. A lot of head service. Okay.
Cash said, if she comes out and says she supports reparations, I will vote for her. Scouts honor.
Hey, Cash, now they're talking about their reparations.
Oh
I
my
can't
God, Scouts honor. I'm so done. Yes. So Humble Lion said, Black faces in high places will not save us. They not like us.
That is just something by Kendrick Lamar.
Well, I mean, I'm not in a high place, but I'm not like most typical Black people either.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't know how to take that.
And actually, you know what is funny that Humble Lion said so? If you go back one, I was kind of cracking up because at the convention, one thing, and I kind of brought this up, I think 2 episodes ago. I think it's fascinating that Trump has decided that he's going to appeal to Black people because he's a fellow convict, or because he rolls out video vixens like Amber Rose, or whatever. Like that somehow somehow is the magnet that attracts Black people, right? So convicts and drug dealers and gangbangers and basically hookers and strippers and that's what they him the Black vote. But somebody should tell him that the convicts can run for president, but they can't vote for president. So he might want to try a little bit harder. That's the portion of the Black vote that he thinks he wants to get, right? So Candace said, other than a two-party system, lobbying should be removed. That's a great suggestion.
I agree with that one.
Yes.
All right. Cash said, and this is why the coalition is falling apart. So Candace said there are private companies funded by the rich 1% that get politicians, Republicans and Democrats alike, to do their bidding. So cash rules everything around me.
Cream, get the
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Political Action Committee, you know what I'm saying, is a thing that's very relevant here in the United States, and they generate a lot of money, and they're able to court politicians as well as judges, and you know, for promoting agendas, and that should be outlawed. I've always felt that should be outlawed, but you know, it will take a very strong president to go ahead and fight that fight.
Well, I just want to make sure that you guys like and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure that you follow the page. It's so interesting because I was not going to have a show today. I was like, I got some stuff to do next week. But then this happened. And you know what's interesting? Because I honestly think that it's going to be more things that are happening. Boom, boom, boom. And I mean, of course, we're talking politics, and we've been talking politics the last couple of weeks. But you're going to start hearing more and more about the weather and this. And I know we had that big crash. It was the airlines were grounded, banks, people, jobs couldn't get on, the whole Wi-Fi. I mean, a lot of things are going on. I'm all about getting that spidey sense going on and just preparing for prepping for all types of situations, making sure that you educate yourself on what's happening, not just on a federal level, but in your local communities as well. And just being prepared for, because these are not your traditional times. We're going to have more and more different things go on, and more topics and conversations to have. Before I let Liz have the last word, Charles, if you have anything to say?
Basically, vote. You need to vote. Okay, regardless of whether or not you like one candidate over the other, the fact still remains is there's a clear-cut person who is out to not facilitate your interests as a so-called minority in this country, and he will blatantly do whatever he feels is necessary to undermine the wishy-washiness of an already corrupt American legal system. So imagine the unfairness of the system that it is now, and now multiply that by 100, and that's what you're going to get with Trump, because it's not geared towards you to begin with. It definitely will be geared towards you, because you're not just voting against Trump. You're voting against the people he appoints into power. You're voting against his dark money supporters. That's who you're voting against. Okay, so you know, Kamala Harris is not the best, but no candidate is. All right, there's never been a best candidate. All right, you know, from George Washington all the way up to now. Okay, it's just who happens to be the better candidate. Okay, and Kamala Harris is the better candidate.
All right, thank you so much, Charles, for that. And Liz, last word with Liz.
Actually, we did get one last comment that came through here from Alice. They said, if you're not voting for Harris, you're voting for Trump. It's that simple. So that's right. And so, all right. In terms of my last words, well, I have two thoughts, right? And so I'm going to try to lean back a little bit. My shirt says "desperately seeking the right one." And if you guys remember old school like personal ads that they used to put in the back of newspapers and stuff, that was the idea behind it. First time I wore the shirt, my husband looked at me like I had lost my mind and all the sense that was in it. But the back of the shirt reads, "Wanted, a common sense candidate with values, courage, and a good reputation. Must love this country. Must agree, assault weapons have no place in society. Gas and food cost too much. Medical care should be affordable. Equality is not a bad idea. Gender isn't complicated. My vote counts as much as yours. Eternal gratitude to service members. Police are good. Police brutality is bad. Education is good for society. They must believe in disagreement and hate. They must believe that disagreement and hate are not interchangeable. So at the regardless of what side you're on, I think that that's something that we should be agreeing to. We should have common sense candidates with good values, courage, and a good reputation, right? At the core of things. One thing I want to say about the show, you guys, we always say it, like and subscribe. I know that Kia and I have spoken about what the purpose of the show is, right? It is giving people like the people in our comment section that join us late on Sunday nights after the kids were put to bed, and creating that community, a safe space that we can speak in. I love that the comment section seems to be growing and getting more and more robust. I love the thoughts. I love that everybody is on there commenting. I know people are on there from different states. So far as I can tell, up and down the East Coast, you guys are talking at each other, talking at us, and asking us questions and everything else. And I'm going to speak for Kia here when I say that it is kind of seeing the dream come true. So you guys keep joining us on Sunday nights when we go live. We're excited to be here with you. We're excited to have a good place that we can actually communicate and get some of this stuff off our chest, because I think we all were screaming at the TV one way or another, screaming, jumping, cheering, whatever it was when we got the news today, and feeling however it was we were feeling. And it's nice to have a good place to meet with you guys on Sunday night and just kind of, have a nightcap and discuss these things. So like and subscribe. We'll let you know when we're
There
live
was
again.
there was one last comment that came in. I don't want it to be forgotten, and it was from Candace.
Yes, I hope everyone's registered to vote. So, all
Yeah,
right.
definitely. Please, and stay tuned. There's always something to talk about, especially nowadays. Like and